Fatal flaw for all 32 NFL teams, ladies and gentlemen. Today specifically, we're going to talk about the fatal flaw for the New Orleans Saints. All right, check the mic. 33rd team is the backdrop. And let's go ahead and get into it. Now, real quick, the fatal flaw for the Saints is the unknown. The big flaw is that at the most important areas, quarterback, head coach, offensive line to a certain extent, there is a complete unknown of not only who, in some situations, like the guard positions or up until a couple days ago, the quarterback position, not only who will be playing there, but what is the range of their performance. It's hard to even quantify what to expect from Spencer Rattler, or if Tyler Shough would have been named the quarterback. It's hard to quantify what to expect from a head coach who has never been a head coach before. It's hard to quantify a lot of this stuff, and that is the flaw. That is the thing that's been holding down the Saints this entire offseason. It's not the roster. We did this exercise where if you look at the roster, you go through every position group, you grade them, you look at last year's grades, you look at last year's metrics. They're below average, certainly, but they're not the worst team in the NFL. Because of the unknown, there's no choice but to put the Saints as the worst team in the NFL for a lot of people.
All right, let's go New Orleans Saints. Fatal flaw.
Tough one.
Football.
I mean, yeah.
No. I mean, the roster's not great. Quarterback,
obviously.
of course, question marks.
Quarterback.
I mean, here's a good example. Okay, let's just go through every position. And you say, is this a flaw? Is this a critical flaw? Running back? No. Wide receiver? No. Tight end? No. Left tackle? No. Left guard? Unknown. Center? No. Right guard? Unknown. Right tackle? No. Okay? Defense? The same exact thing. It is difficult to find a spot where you're like, this is a fatal flaw or a critical flaw. You could say, if we were talking about last year, run defense for sure. All right? A couple years ago, offensive line play for sure. Right now, we can't really say any of that because we just don't know. Like run defense. Okay, well, we don't know what this, we have no idea what the new scheme, new system is going to look like. We have no idea. All right? So if you do it that way, it's hard to do like a critical flaw. And it's funny because like he just said, I know he was tongue-in-cheek there, but he said football. That's their critical flaw, playing football. People, this blows my mind. People talk about the New Orleans Saints as if the Saints were the worst team in the NFL last year. Teams that were worse than the Saints last year. Titans. Browns. Giants. Raiders. Panthers. Jaguars. All those teams. Jets. Markedly worse. Okay? Jaguars won 4 games. But it would sound nuts to say, oh, the Jaguars' critical flaw? Playing football. Come on. You know what I mean? But because of the unknown and because of this narrative, like the Saints are just this kind of laughing stock, that's just what people run with. But if the Saints are so bad, why weren't they the worst team last year? That is the big question mark that I have. If the Saints are truly as bad as people make them seem to be, if they're truly that bad, why were they not even one of the 3 or 4 worst teams last year? And you could say, well, if it wasn't for Derek Carr, they would be. And it's like, well, 1, you're greatly overvaluing Derek Carr. But 2, I see your Derek Carr, and I raise you all of the players returning. So let's just say it washes it out. Right? Let's say Derek Carr retiring, the loss of Derek Carr is washed out by the return of Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Eric McCoy, all of the draft picks, Kellen Moore. Like, let's just say it's a complete wash, which I don't think it is, but let's say a complete wash. Then why weren't they that bad last year? Even the DVOA metrics, not that bad. Not good, but below average, no doubt, but not the worst team.
Spencer Rattler, the official starter.
Yeah, quarterback, and the fact that it might not be a good situation for the quarterback either. Even if it was a great situation, you wouldn't feel good about the fact that the battle was Spencer Rattler versus Tyler Shough. But that offensive line doesn't look great.
Or does it?
The receiving core, I think, should be okay, but there's a lot of guys either coming off injuries or coming off various question marks. So, yeah,
It's an interesting one for Kellen Moore, new head coach, who I always describe as I don't think he's a great offensive coordinator. I think he's fine without any distinguished characteristics, right? You don't look at Kellen Moore and say he's this scheme or that scheme, or he's run heavy or he's pass heavy, but he's always had either Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, or Jalen Hurts in the Eagles offense to run. This is the first time he's have to, I don't know, make it work, right? Make some lemonade out of Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shough, a questionable offensive line, though if they're all healthy, might not be that bad, the O-line.
Exactly. Offensive line, not that bad. I mean, you could just go across the board and say, not that bad. Offensive line, not that bad. Wide receivers, not that bad. Running back, not that bad. Defensive line, not that bad. Like, you can just do that for the entire team. And I've argued this a million times. You can't go across the entire team and say, not that bad, and then at the end, summarize it with worst team in the NFL. Like, well, that math doesn't math.
Chris Olave and some questions at receiver. Rashid Shaheed's there fine. Brandon Cook's getting a little bit older. So it's not awful, but the quarterback situation, I mean, that's definitely the biggest question, right? Like if you dropped another quarterback into this situation with Kellen Moore, you'd say, all right, they could make something work here. But there's not enough from a Rattler or a Shough to say, okay, this is going to be a good season for the Saints.
Yeah.
And then more specifically, I would say the defensive line.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the interior defensive line or the running game or however you want to phrase it. Or even if you want to say getting to the quarterback, whatever. Like if that's the flaw, okay, I'm with you there. But what I think would be interesting, we would never know this, but I would be interested to know if Daniel Jones was a starting quarterback for the Saints, what the narrative would be. I don't think the narrative would be that bad. I think the narrative would be, well, Daniel Jones has made the playoffs before. You know that, okay, with the right coach, he can put it together. Okay. I think people, I don't know if they, have the Saints win in the South, but I think that the narrative would be much different. And that kind of tells you all you need to know is people just desperately want a known quantity. They desperately want to know anything. Whether it's Daniel Jones or whoever, like at least they know something. But for some reason, in this situation, the unknown has led everyone to the same conclusion, which is team sucks.
They just released Isaiah Foskey, former second-round pick. He's done almost nothing. That's the reason why he got released. Brian Brzee, pretty good pass rusher, not good against the run. They just don't have enough up front. Carl Granderson's good. Chase Young's pretty good. I don't love that defensive line.
The interior in particular looks pretty awful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Devon Godshaw's like okay it's just they're okay.
I mean, he just named it. Like he just did the exercise that I've said to do. He said, I like Carl Granderson, I like Chase Young. Brian Brzee's good against the pass, not a great against the run, and Devon Godshaw is just kind of okay. That's the entire defensive line. Even in that exercise, there's not like, even there you don't say this player is bad, this player is horrible.
At best when it comes to defensive tackle. But there's a reason why I think they're the favorites to have the number one overall pick or be one of the worst teams in the league.
I also feel, I mean, this is confirmation bias and, priors and et cetera. Didn't love Tyler Shough as a prospect. You don't even feel the excitement of, well, when Shough gets in the lineup, maybe he could show something. I don't really think that's likely. Maybe he will. And if that happens, great. That changes everything. But, at least I'm interested in the Browns' backups. I'm not even particularly interested in seeing Tyler Shough play when he comes in. When Dylan Gabriel comes in for Flacco, I'm like, all right, I'm going to tune in for that one. I'm watching. I'm focused. And when Shedeur gets in, God knows the internet's going to burn down. But when Tyler Shough gets in, it's like this is probably going to be worse than it was last week.
I know Lions fans pay the bills, but Shedeur is really paying the bills.
All that is crazy. Like Tyler Shough has not been that bad. I don't even think he's been bad in this preseason. But the idea of Shough is getting worse and worse or whatever, compared to Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, in what metric? And again, he just proved what I said 5 minutes ago. The reason that the Browns aren't this laughingstock is because Joe Flacco. And people know who Joe Flacco is. Spoiler, Joe Flacco sucks. But people know who he is, so they're okay with being like, yeah, he's whatever. Because they don't know with Spencer Rattler, it's not, yeah, he's whatever. It's, he's the worst quarterback in the NFL. This is a disaster. This is a train wreck, whatever. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying the Saints are going to be good. I do not think they're going to be good. But I just can't understand the idea that this team that's average to below average across the board, the sum of that is the worst team in the NFL. If the Saints were the worst team in the NFL last year, then I'd be like, yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, we just saw it. If the Saints are who they were last year, which I don't know if y'all noticed the waivers, we waived 70% of the starters from last year. But if the Saints are just what they were last year, I still don't think they'd be the worst team in the NFL. Like the Panthers, and I know they made upgrades, and I know that whatever, but they were the worst defense in the NFL last year. They showed that. They proved that. The same DC is coming back. So is it crazy to think they could be the worst defense in the league again? No. They just were. But the Saints weren't just the worst team in the NFL. They weren't just a laughingstock. They almost beat Philly. They almost beat Washington. Washington specifically with guys who are currently on waivers. Jake Haener started that game. Jake Haener started against an NFC championship level team. And it came down to a 2-point conversion. And we're sitting here saying, I'm excited when Dylan Gabriel comes in. What?
If you get a Shedeur Lions fan, I'm a fan of the Lions, but I also really wanted Shedeur.
I mean, bills are paid. When that happens, we're going to get a lot of views, a lot of click-throughs there. So Saints, easier one, I guess. Tampa Bay Bucks.
But and their overall answer is what my answer was. Spencer Rattler is their answer. But my point is that he's not a flaw. You don't know. The quarterback position is absolutely the biggest question mark. No doubt. It's the most important position. We have 5.5 or 6.25 games, or however you want to quantify it, with Spencer Rattler last year. Okay, I'm with you. All right, like I see that. But to outright say it's just shit, I don't get. I don't see how you can just outright be like, this is a question mark, and I've answered the question. You got to see it first. If week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, Rattler is that bad, and then Shough comes in and he's that bad, yeah, then it's like, okay, this team is being dragged down by 2 horrible quarterbacks. And that's a different conversation, because then we'll see it and we'll know and we'll have the numbers and we'll have the metrics and whatever. But as of right now, I just don't see it. I am interested in what they said for like the Panthers. Let's see what they said for the Panthers.
I feel like it's just an overall lack of talent on defense. Offense, I think, actually could be really quite good. Defense worries me.
Yeah, so if we said this about the Falcons at the beginning of the Falcons discussion, if we said, hey, pass rush is still an issue, but they did address it in the draft, you could make the same claim for the Panthers. Pass rush, until proven otherwise, is an issue, even though I like the way they addressed it with Nick Skorton in the second, Prinsley Umanmielen in the third. Sound process, but until those guys are out there winning one-on-ones against tackles in the NFL, it's a big question for the Panthers.
They repeated Atlanta's process from the previous year, right? Everyone thought that they were going to go pass rusher at the top of this draft. Instead, they go Tedero.
And I mean, that is correct, right? But I think that line of thinking of like, they did address it, but until proven otherwise, it's still an issue. Like, it's kind of got to be, you kind of have to flip it for the Saints. We're like, until we see it be an issue, how do we know it's an issue, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what's the fatal flaw, what is the critical flaw for the New Orleans Saints in 2025. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.